So let's talk a little bit right now about masking and solids. Masking is really not much different than what we did really early on, where we were drawing different shapes with the spline tool in Illustrator. But now we would be using the pen tool up here, as you see, the pen tool in After Effects to draw masks. So some situations call for you to use masking, and some situations would call for you to use a vector graphic, maybe out of Illustrator or any other program. So in a lot of situations, though, you may need to use masking, and it really depends on the use case, and it's something that you get a good feel for when to mask and when to use a vector, just from experience. So let's go ahead and also talk about solids. First, we'll talk about solids too. Solids are pretty interesting. You end up using them a lot, and really, I have a new composition here. And a solid is, as the name implies, it's just a solid block of color. But surprisingly, you end up using them a lot when it comes to, putting particular tints on things, or using them as placeholders, or masking particular parts of the solid so that you get mattes. I mean, there's really all different things that we can do with solids. So the sky's really the limit with solids. But just to give you an idea of a solid, we can go ahead and here right click inside of an empty composition or any other part of a composition and go to new, and you can add a new solid in. So let's go ahead and pick a color. You can make them any color you want, and you know what, if you pick a color right now and you don't like it, you can always go back and you can select the solid and go to layer, solid settings, and you can go back and change the solid size, and you can change the solid color, right? So it's not a permanent decision. You've got all kinds of options here, but right now, maybe we like the color blue. I get asked to do things with the blue color palette a lot, so why don't we just go ahead and roll with blue here. So you'll notice that this is really, it's just a solid color, right? Nothing crazy here, and you can apply different effects to it, so that's an interesting aspect to this. One thing that maybe we'll talk about here is we'll talk about masking, we'll talk about stroking, and that's something that we typically do use solids for. So I've got a solid here, and now I can go ahead and I can cut out pieces of it with the pen tool. And when I click with the pen tool, it goes and it makes a mask. So holding down shift will let you draw straight lines in any particular direction. And interestingly enough, I've gone around here and I've connected the end of it, right? And all the spline drawing rules, by the way, apply. So I did this all with corner points, but you can go ahead now and look. These tools look really familiar from Illustrator. So I can go here and I can convert this to a, say, a curved line. Nothing crazy. We're used to this. So a lot of that knowledge you got out of Illustrator is transferable to drawing masks inside of After Effects. So cool. I went in here and I created a curved spline, right? So this is really just a spline, but it's drawn to a mask layer. So now that we've created a mask over top of that, which by the way you can toggle on and off with the shape path visibility and the mask visibility. You can toggle that on and off with this button here. Sometimes it's annoying and the yellow line gets in your way, but other times you may want to see it just for the sake of working with the mask. So now if I twirl this down over here, you'll notice that I can find my masks. Right now I've only got one mask on this solid, but I'll notice that it's defaulting to being an add, which means whatever I drew there outlines the shape of what I want to show through. Let's turn our transparency grid on and see exactly what we're talking about. See, I've just masked out this one piece of my solid. Interestingly enough, I can also use this first part of the mask here. I can use this to subtract, and as we've guessed, you can go ahead and you can make it a subtractive mask. So whatever you drew around, it subtracts. You can use it as an intersection, which is different if you've got multiple masks going on, right? Lighten, darkening, difference. I don't use those a whole lot, but I do use add and subtract a whole lot. Sometimes I use none, And what none really does is it just hides the mask, right? So you can see it, but it may have an ulterior motive to having the mask on here, and there are plenty of ulterior motives you can have. So we'll discuss that in a couple of minutes. But for the time being, I've got an ad here, right? So interestingly enough, something I can do here is I can maybe duplicate this solid. I did that by pressing Control D, but I'm pretty sure you can pull it down from a menu, right? If you go to Edit, you could probably duplicate it, right? Here it is, Control D, duplicate, right? So Control D, duplicate. Sometimes I just use it as a quick way to duplicate something if I like it and I just want to alter it a little bit. Pressing the M key lets me just automatically pull down all of the stuff related to masks. And you'll notice, since this is a duplicate, I can actually go in here and I can start to tweak this. So I can set this up, I can move the mask as a whole, but also I can just kind of grab that one point of a mask, and basically all of the vector editing rules apply. So I can go in here like we did in Illustrator, and I can go ahead and move this stuff around, and I can make it overlap this way, I can do it this way, create something jazzy this way, and there you go. You end up with something. Fairly, fairly distinct and interesting here. So I've got this. Maybe I want to bring this up here. Like this. So I've got these two. Solids on top of each other. I can do different things with them. I can add that one on top of that one, and I get something interesting, right? So this is all different stuff that we can do with just the masks. So something else that we want to point to that is very interesting with a mask is this may really outline the use case for a mask. When we twirl down the mask options, there's different things underneath of here that are really important for us to understand. You can feather a mask. So this is not unlike feathering in Photoshop when you feather a selection. I can click and drag that, and look, it kind of blurs the mask a little bit. So you can get something, something that is not really attainable with a vector. You kind of have to work a little hard to get something like this with a vector. So this is a distinct use case. If we want to kind of blur this out, this is a distinct use case for a mask, right? The opacity of the mask, I can turn that up and down, right? That's pretty self-explanatory. We've worked with opacity before. Mask expansion. This is something that really is really important, and I use it quite a lot, is mask expansion. And what that means is I can take this number here, and as I drag it in and out, you can see if it's a negative number, it kind of sucks the mask in. If I, go out like this, well, it expands the mask past its boundary. So why would I even do something like this? This is interesting because what if I've got, let's go ahead and delete our mask off of our blue solid. So this is, say I've got a map and I've got little circles, or little ellipses that I want to kind of pop up all over the place. So let me go in here and draw a couple of ellipses, right? Whoops. Right? So this is where the mask expansion property really comes in handy. Knowing that we can keyframe things, say that I've got, a couple of these dots on a map and I want them to all show up at the same time, or I want them to at least pop up out of nowhere and expand, right? I could scale them for sure, but also I can go ahead and I can expand the mask. So here I can keyframe the mask expansion, and then I go back, something zippy like 8 pixels, right? I can go back, or I'm sorry, 8 frames. I can go back, and I can go back and I can reduce these values to make them look like they're, just popping up out of nowhere, right? So they could pop up like that. I could definitely go in here and I can go in here and I can ease them, right? We're used to this, right? Easy ease, right? So give them that cartoon-like quality. But also I can take these keyframes, obviously, and I can move them in time. So I can make them show up at different times, right? So I can make them kind of pop up like this, right? So this is why mask expansion actually becomes a fairly useful tool. So just keep in mind, you've got some really good tools here when you mask things out. All of your capabilities that you gained from working with splines are also really valuable and can be put to good use here when it comes to drawing things. Keep in mind, you can also do these primitives like we did here with our dots. So and also masks, the nice part about them is that they can be keyframes. So if I go down here and I press U to reveal all my keyframes, it gives me something to grab on to and work with a little bit later. So hopefully that helps.